Hi everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing this very sentimental underbust corset made by JL Corsets or Sultry Confinement. JL Corsets is a custom corset maker based in Wales. So here's the front, the side, the back, and the other side. So for those curious about the measurements, actually this corset was not made to measure for my figure. It was actually a standard size that she had released. She auctioned this off, and it just happened to fit me really well. Part of that is probably because it is mesh, so it does have a little bit more ease than another corset that might be made from couture, but still it fits me remarkably well. When I pulled it out of the box initially, it had a 22-inch waist. The rib cage was 28 inches and the hip here was 32 inches. So it had about a 6-inch rib spring and a 10-inch hip spring. However, my natural rib cage is closer to 30 inches and my high hip is about 33 inches. So it has ease to stretch a little bit, as one might come to expect from a corset made from this style of mesh. And for the length, the center front is 12.5 inches. The princess seam from under the breast to the top of the lap here is 9.5 inches. Side seam is the shortest at 9 inches. And in the center back, it's 12 inches. I find the pattern and the silhouette of this corset to be very comfortable. There is a bit of cupping over the rib cage here, as well as a bit of a hip shelf right there. It is pretty dramatically cupped over the hip. Now, the reason why this corset is so sentimental to me is that this is actually a twin to another corset that my friend Christine had commissioned from JL Corsets a number of years ago, and that was before she passed away. So this particular silk was actually sent from Christine from Australia to Wales to have it made into a corset, and there was just a little bit left over in their stash after Christine passed away. So what JL Corsets did was create this corset in a standard size and auctioned it off to support Christine's family after her passing. So it was a little bit important to me that I won that auction, because I knew it was going to a good cause, and because Christine was so thrilled with her corsets from JL Corsets as well. She found it very comfortable. It was very cupped in the rib cage and the hips as well. And if she made a corset video on that before she passed away, I'll link it in the description down below. But yeah, for the several years that Christine was part of the corset community, she was a very good friend to me, and I still miss her a lot. So that's why, even though I am not really even sure this corset is available from JL Corsets anymore, I still wanted to explain the significance behind it and explain why it's so special to me, and also just show off the corset, because this is a corset channel. And also the mesh is really neat. I'll show you a close-up in a couple of minutes here, but it is not your typical fishnet style netting that you see in many off-the-rack corsets. It's closer to the netting that you would find in sports shoes, so it has a little bit more strength to it. So let's go to the tabletop portion of this review and I can show you the details of this close-up. So here's the JL Corsets laid flat, and for the materials you can see that it is a mesh corset, so a single layer of mesh in between here. And the mesh is really interesting because it's not their typical fishnet style, very flexible or stretchy mesh that is so widely popular in many off-the-rack corsets. But this is actually closer to the type of mesh you would see in sports jerseys, or the mesh that you might find in shoes. And I actually have a pair of really breathable, breezy mesh shoes that have lasted me many years, and I've been wearing them like almost on a daily basis, like every summer for at least 5 years now, and they're holding up very well. So I'm pretty confident that this mesh, if it is a similar type and a similar quality, then it's probably going to last much better and longer than many of the off-the-rack style mesh corsets out there. And the boning channels, the binding over the busk here, is a really beautiful silk that was chosen by Christine and actually sent to Wales to have it made into a corset. And I remember feeling the silk by itself when Christine sent me a swatch as well. And it was very thin, very delicate and flexible. So I know that JL Corsets must have fused it to something more sturdy. And you can see on the underside here, it's their black herringbone couture there. And this is what the JL Corsets label looks like in the back here. And you can see that it has laundering instructions on the underside as well. And for the construction of this corset, it is a 5-panel pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see the first 2 panels tapers towards the center front here. The bones converge towards the low tummy to add a little bit more support there. And there is a lot of curve for the hip here over panel 3 and panel 4. That's why we have the ease over the hip. And panel 4 also has quite a bit of space for the back here. And panel 5 is a little bit more straight. The construction of this corset is fairly typical for many mesh corsets. Single layer of mesh, the mesh panels were probably assembled together first, and then the boning channels were laid down on top of it. And you can see that there's some little decorative fabric underneath there, so you can see that the seams are sandwiched in between those 2 layers there. And because each set of boning channels is straddling the seams between the panels, it helps to reinforce that seam and help it to not rip apart later. And turning to the inside, you can very plainly see that there is a waist tape on the inside of this corset. It's 1 inch wide, twill tape, and it runs from the center front here all the way to the center back. And the binding in this corset, as well as the boning channels here, are made from matching strips of the beautiful teal silk brocade, and it's backed onto the strength fabric as well, because I do feel that there is a bit of body in it. Machine stitched on both outside and the inside here. Tidy top stitch on both sides. There's no Modesty panel that came in the back of this corset, but it did come with a Modesty placket in the front, finished in the same teal silk here. And it is a little bit stiffened. It doesn't have a bone in it, but I believe that it is backed onto the herringbone coutil, so that must give it a little bit of body. The busk in this corset is 11 inches long, and it has 5 loops and pins. The last 2 are a little bit closer together. It is a heavy duty busk. It is 1 inch wide on each side, and it has a fair amount of stiffness. There are a total of 20 bones in this corset, 10 on each side, not including the front busk here. So it's double boned on the seams, 2, 4, 6, 8. And you can see that it does attract the magnet here, so they are spiral steel bones in there. And then there are another 2 flat steel bones sandwiching the grommets on each side. There are 24 grommets in the back of this corset, 12 on each side, and they are finished in black. I believe they are size 5mm, and they're Prim brand eyelets, which are very popular amongst corset makers in the UK here. They are set pretty much equidistantly above and below the waist, but a little bit closer together at the waistline to help facilitate, ease of cinching up here. And they are all holding in fairly well. I don't see any damage around the grommets here. Here's the underside of the grommets, nice washers. All of them have rolled really beautifully. I don't see any splits in these. The laces glide through really nicely. Again, I don't see any damage around these grommets at all. They're all holding in very nicely. And the laces themselves are 1/4 inch wide, actually closer to 8 inch wide, black shoelace style laces. They feel like they might be cotton instead of nylon. There's no stretch to them. They are long enough, they hold the bow really nicely, they glide through the grommets well, so they do their job. And this concludes my review of this mesh underbust corset made by JL Corsets or Sultry Confinement. And if you liked this video or you learned something new, please remember to click that like button down there, as it helps support this channel. If you have any comments or questions about this corset, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to get back to you. And I will see you all next week for another video.